Good evening, everyone. My name is Hoàng Ngân. For the last 16 years, I've worked in branding and marketing across both Vietnamese leading companies and multinational corporations. Day in and day out, my job was to analyze metrics, understand consumer behavior, and figure out how to make a product stand out on the shelf. But somewhere along the way, I realized something uncomfortable. I noticed that the very same branding logic that we use for product slowly started walking off the shelf and shaping the way human beings see themselves. And nowhere is that process is more visible than in your generation today. In branding and marketing, we have a very clear definition of what makes strong brand. A good brand should be simple, consistent, easy to recognize, and easy to remember. And when you see this logo, your brand immediately recognize who they are and what they stand for. And usually the brand that people choose first wins. For a very long time, those principles only belonged to products. But over the years, the world shifted. Everything became more digitalized, more competitive. The job market became harsher. Social media turned attention into currency. And the rise of AI started making many of us quietly question what makes me still valuable? How do I stay visible? How do I make sure I am still needed? And slowly, the pressure to stand out stopped belonging only to products. People started applying the same branding logic to themselves. And that was when I began hearing concepts, which used to be strictly corporate, appearing heavily in everyday conversation among young people. Visibility, executive presence, personal positioning, and thought leadership. In similar words, doing good work is no longer enough. You need to make sure the world see your value. And that concept we all know as personal branding. Every time I open social media, I feel like everyone is trying to be the most optimized version of themselves. A polished profile, a smart bio, a carefully presented life. Everyone has to stand out. Everyone has to be memorable and everyone has to be interesting. And sometimes it feels like everyone online is trying to teach me life lesson. Why I'm just trying to survive my 150 unread Zalo messages and think about what to eat for tonight. But there's a heavy psychological cost to this. A lot of people are now learning how to position themselves even before they had the chance to really understand who they really are. I once asked one of my mentees a question. She's well smart, intelligent, great at networking, very strong profile, very articulate. And I asked her, if we remove your LinkedIn profile, your achievements, your titles, your company names, who do you think you are? She went quiet for a few seconds and then she smiled awkwardly and said to me, wow, this is a really difficult question. Give me some time and I'll get back to you later. I still remember that moment because that's when I realized we are living in a time where people are learning to see themselves through the eyes of the market. The part that the market rewards, we amplify. The part that feel human, the messy, the uncertain, or the imperfect ones, we just hide. And very slowly, our external identity start growing faster than our inner self. There was a period in my life when I was exactly like that too. I attacked a lot of my self-worth to recognition, performance, titles, and whether I was being seen. If you spend enough years in corporate environments, you probably know the feeling. You get used to being introduced as this is Ngân, she works for Unilever, she's the marketing director of Brand Y. And slowly, I start seeing myself through those titles too. There was a day when I sat in front of my laptop looking at my own LinkedIn profile and everything seemed perfectly flawless. A prestigious title, an impressive career trajectory, and a series of corporate achievements. And honestly, if I didn't know this person behind the screen, if I just stumbled upon this profile online as a stranger, I would have stopped, scrolled through it, and thought, wow, this woman really has her entire life figured out. She's unstoppable. But inside, something strangely empty. It felt like I was living a version of myself that existed only to fit into a professional mode, rather than a version that's truly alive. I was constantly on high alert, wearing a mask of effortless perfection. And let me tell you, maintaining that polished image every single year is absolutely exhausting. I remember constantly feeling like I had to say something impressive enough, insightful enough, and smart enough. But strangely, the more recognition I received, the more afraid I became that one day people would realize that maybe I'm not as good as they think I am. And I think many people here understand that feeling. A TikToker with hundreds of thousands of followers once told me, I would never build a thread account because people there can read my online comments. And when I heard that initially, I did find it very funny. But later on, I realized something deeper. It showed me that people nowadays are not only afraid of being disliked, they are afraid of being seen as human, inconsistent, imperfect. And the real danger of living a version of yourself people love is not that other people believe in that performance. It's that eventually you don't even know who you actually are. And the process of being seen start replacing the process of becoming. Later in life, when I started writing on press, my mindset changed completely. I didn't start writing just to build a personal brand. I never sat down and thought, how do I hack the algorithm? Or how do I become a thought leader? Instead, it started with observation. After spending some time reading posts on threads, I noticed a recurring pattern. I saw so many young people asking burning questions about their career, about development, about marketing, and about navigating life. The questions that left completely unanswered. As a strategist, I saw a gap, unmet needs, but as a human being, I saw myself in them. I realized that my 16 years of experiences of failures of turns around could actually serve a purpose. That became my content pillar. I started writing because there were too many moments in my younger years when I desperately needed someone to tell me, you are not alone. Moments of failures, moments of confusion, moments when I felt not good enough, or simply moments when growing up felt unbearably exhausting. So I just started writing honestly about what I had gone through. And interestingly, the best thing came afterward. Not just career opportunities, but real relationship, deep conversation, and mentees who trusted me enough to share their deepest fears. And that was the moment everything clicked for me as a brand strategist. I realized that we all have been looking at personal branding completely wrong. True personal branding is not about inventing a character or trying to appear perfect or flawless or interesting. Its ultimate goal is exactly like any other great brand, to earn trust. And how do you earn trust? You don't build it through performances. You build it by making people understand who you are, what you stand for, and what your core values are. And the only way to do that sustainably is to ensure that your inner self and your outer image are deeply aligned. Real trust is earned when what you say, what you believe, and how you actually live begin to match over time. It's simply the honest traces of a human being who lives, grows, struggles, and left behind for the world to see. That's when the strongest and most sustainable personal brand is never a manufactured mask. I love the image of a tree. The tree does not survive storm because of how beautiful the leaves look above the ground. It survives because the roots underneath that nobody sees. And I believe that people grow works the same way. The experience that shape us the most are usually not beautiful enough for social media. A painful failure, a difficult conversation, a period when you're completely lost. That quietly become the roots. Those experiences will really shift who you are, what you believe, what you stand for. Sometimes we believe one thing, and other times we change. Sometimes we feel strong, but the other time we feel completely lost, and that is normal. That is not failure, that is growth. I think that human beings have never had this many tools to express themselves before. But maybe it's also never been this difficult to become ourselves. Because so many people today are growing up not in front of a real mirror, but in front of an algorithmic one. And when you leave this auditorium tonight, when you close your phones, I believe that's the hardest question that your generation have to face. And honestly, mine too is this. When we remove LinkedIn profile, your title, your achievement, your company names, who you are really. I am almost 40 now, which honestly means two things. First, I become a little wiser, hopefully. And secondly, I am more excited about just staying home and doing nothing. But I think one of the most beautiful things about growing older is that you're realizing becoming yourself is never a finished process. And for now, I no longer measure my value entirely through titles, to for performance, or through external validation. And if you've removed all that I have had so far, I believe that I am still a mother who growing alongside her child, who keeps learning, keeps evolving, and cares deeply about living meaningfully. So please, don't rush to decide how the world sees you before you even know who you really are beneath all of it. Focus on building roots first, because in the end, a beautifully marketed identity can never replace a genuinely grown human being. Thank you.